Disclosure Day. It's about aliens, obviously, and I think in many ways a lot of people are going to come out of this both satisfied but a little bit underwhelmed. And I think it's because people that watch this movie, they're hoping for real life answers to the question of aliens. Because I think in a lot of ways this movie is based on a lot of real life events happening in real time, like the UAP videos being released by the Pentagon and all this crazy stuff. And, you know, Bob Lazar's the most watched podcast episode of all time. If you don't know, Bob Lazar is the guy that came out and told the world about Area 51. But that's too deep for this video. Disclosure Project is marketed towards the mainstream audience. People that are just into cool, like, sci-fi action films. But I think what is difficult is a lot of people that might be going into this are really hardcore UFO nuts and, like, really deep into the alien lore and the history of aliens and Roswell and the government conspiracies and all of that. And this movie does touch a little bit on it, but it's very surface level. And I think that's very intentional and strategic because this is a big multi-million dollar Hollywood movie. So they need to keep it surface level, entertaining, because you literally only have, like, what, 2 hours? You're not going to, it's not a documentary. So don't go into this movie expecting an in-depth UFO documentary if you're a UFO nut. But from my perspective, I came into this open-minded, not thinking it was going to be a deep dive into real world UFO stuff and giving you real life answers to your questions of the universe. This is a Hollywood movie. And I think if you go into it with that expectation of it just being a movie, you'll have a good time. Because what I found was Disclosure Day was a fun movie. And surprisingly, am I saying it right? Surprisingly, it was like a big chunk of it was comedy. It's a comedy action film, which I didn't know it was gonna be that. I thought Disclosure Day, based on the trailer, was a thriller, was a sci-fi thriller, but I would say it is a comedic comedy. This movie is very lighthearted. It is funny, and there's a lot of action. There's not a lot of alien stuff, actually. It is about Disclosure Day, and this might be some spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, maybe pause this video, but it's been a while, so I hope you have. In short, the movie is about a guy with a bunch of classified UFO files, and he's running away from the authorities, and he's trying to give it to the news networks to give it out to the world and prove that aliens are real, because he has legit crazy videos of aliens and UFOs. And while this is happening, people have this ability to communicate with aliens or do some psychosis communication when they are in contact by the alien, when throughout their past. Like, if they were contacted by aliens, they have this unique ability. And you have two main characters. You have the main character where the guy has the UFO files, and you have the girl character who's a news anchor who has this ability because she made contact when she was a child. So you have those two characters, and basically they're dodging enemies, and they're dodging, like, the Men in Black, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and it basically leads to Disclosure Day. That's basically it. The storyline is very simple, but I think I really appreciated that the movie pacing was really well done. It's lighthearted. It's one of those movies where you can easily rewatch it at home and have a good time. If you're, having a lazy Sunday and have nothing to do and you want to pop it on TV, I think this is a great movie. But that being said, that's a double-edged sword, because masterpiece movies, you can't do that. For me, I can't really put, let's just say, what do I consider a masterpiece? Well, some masterpieces you can rewatch, but let's just say, no, that okay. I was gonna give a bad example, but okay, hold on. This movie is a fun movie, but it's very surface level. There's a lot of plot holes, and I think it was made with the intention of being just a fun, like family film that does touch on real life topics of aliens, and it does kind of scratch that itch if you're into that UAP stuff. It gives you that, but it's very surface level, and it's a fun movie. But don't expect more, because they don't have the they don't have the time to dive deeper, because this is a Steven Spielberg movie, and at the end of the day, I think he was just trying to make something that was entertaining and that was timeless. And I think in many ways this will age pretty decent, because you could watch it over and over again. But I don't think it changed my life. I don't think I went into this film and came out of it like, holy crap, I never thought of it that way. Like, there was no unique twist or spin, or there was not one moment where I was like, oh, they really sat down and really thought this script out for months and months. This felt like you could have written it, honestly. I think you could have written this thing in 1 month. It felt very simple, but the execution was good enough that I'm happy I saw it in theaters. So I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people didn't like it because they expected a lot. I went in there, I was hoping for a lot, but at the same time, I know my expectations and are ridiculous for UFO stuff, because I'm a UFO nut. So I lowered it. I actually lowered it and said, this is probably not going to be what my dream alien movie, but I'm going to come into this with an open mind. And what I got was a fun action movie that was filled with comedy. So if you're into easy to watch movies and you like aliens, I thought it was great. That being said, I just want to say, my favorite, I think the best alien UFO movie of all time, execution, touching real life topics, is Independence Day by Will Smith. I think they covered Area 51 during a time where that was a sensitive topic, and it was still classified. The practical effects were amazing. The story was great. They showed the mothership coming down to Earth. They showed everything that a UFO sci-fi nut would want to see. But not only that, we had peak Will Smith as the main character. Not only did you have the comedy, you had the lore, you had the action, you had the practical effects, and Independence Day, to me, aged like the best wine you could ever find. And I think any UFO movie I ever watch, I will always compare it to that. And Steven Spielberg is nothing close to Independence Day, but it belongs to sit in the same shelf. Maybe not next to it, but I think it's good enough, and I respect it enough, and the writing respects the UAP stuff enough that it could sit on the same shelf. So yeah, that is my take on it. And yeah. Anyways, I just felt like doing a Disclosure Day review because I did a review on Backrooms. If you look at my YouTube history, I did a review on Backrooms, and I didn't like it. I thought this was a lot more satisfying than Backrooms. Obviously, you can't compare the two, but so far, for the movies I've seen this year, Disclosure Day was one of the better ones. Alright, I'm at 10 minutes. This was supposed to be a 5-minute video. Anyways, I'm done.